So first things first, Aaron, how are you?
I'm pretty good. And I want to just say congratulations to getting to a Friday night.
Well, it's always every week's a challenge, I suppose.
Yeah,
Um,
I look forward to Friday night. Right now it's Friday midday for me. So
would, it is interesting. Has that changed now that you've become a father?
absolutely. So when I said I'm looking forward to Friday night, it was kind of a lie. It's all
Sure.
each day is the same, and I go to bed really early now. And I was kind of an early sleeper before, but now there's a real reason because I want to rest so I could wake up and be a good dad in the morning. So uh, that is definitely a new thing in my life.
Yeah, what has it been to compartmentalize in a way your creativity, to seek out specific moments where you can be creative, rather than just waiting for some divine intervention, I suppose.
Yeah, it's it's definitely, as you said, compartmentalized my availability to be able to make music or to be able to even talk to you right now. So I have to choose my time wisely. I don't surf as much. I don't do as I had to become much less selfish and become
Sure.
more selfless. Now that all to be said, my family is very supportive of the music and my career path. So I kind of space out the time as best I can. And when I do have the ability to make music and be in the studio, I'm very productive. Because I have so many ideas. And before, I think I had almost too much time, so I could pick and choose when I wanted to, fulfill some of these ideas. But now it's um, put in more of a specific block, and then I could
Mm.
focus. So it's been actually pretty cool too to do it in this new way.
Yeah, I'm sure it helps with decision making simply because you don't have time to mull it over as much.
Yeah, yeah, and I've been doing this long enough that um, the decision making has become a little easier,
Okay.
and there's a certain kind of focus and um, management of time and expectations all at the same time.
Well, this maybe ties into my next question then, because a couple of years ago, I think it was during the lockdowns, but I'm not sure. You kind of reached the decision to go at it independently again, to kind of focus on
Yeah.
bringing, yeah, self-publishing and stuff. What led up to that decision, especially now in hindsight, now that you've done it for a bit?
Yeah. Without getting into the boring aspects of the
Sure.
business side of it, I saw an opportunity, sort of a lane open where I could um, do it on my own and having a little bit of time under my belt and hopefully a little bit of wisdom. Um, I just feel like the people around me, we know just as much as a major label does or another record
Mm.
label, and that is to say that we don't know anything. So you just throw it against the wall and see what happens. It's a really exciting time, I think, in all forms of media in a lot of ways. For example, if you were to talk to a bunch of fancy suits at record labels, you would probably find that no one really knows the answers to how to have success or how to have a hit song or what is a hit song, and everything in between. So the power has shifted into music lovers. You know, so many
Mm.
bands have success now, even years down the line. There are multiple examples of bands having a revival moment where a music lover decided to make some sort of video on social media and then it catches fire and then now all of a sudden this band or artist um, is blowing up
Mm.
several years down the line. So it's a really exciting time to me because um, the gatekeepers and the decision makers have become the public. And the same goes for legacy media. No one
Mm,
really
sure.
trusts or listens to the news anymore, which is a beautiful thing as well. And we're all communicating with each other, whether it's friends or family, and with music. And I don't have to tune into any one specific uh, outlet to learn about new music. I kind of can talk to friends, or the different algorithms of the different streaming sites are beautiful as well, because I'm recommended songs based off of other songs I've listened to, whether that's a 40s jazz song all the way to an 80s ballad, and it gives me that. So it's a really amazing time for music. And I also think that there's probably a handful of artists that haven't been discovered that we don't even know about, that are going to be somewhat groundbreaking, because they have the ability now to listen to anything, anytime. And growing up as a kid, it wasn't like that. You'd have to wait for a release. You'd have to wait to be able to own the song yourself, whether it was a CD, a cassette tape, vinyl, even predating myself. And now, if you tell me about a song that you love, I'll be able to hear that the second we get off this interview.
Sure.
So that's a really exciting thing to me.
No, I definitely agree. The it almost feels like music has become open source in a way where it's
Yeah.
accessible to everybody in every shape or form. The one thing that I've always thought about within this context is the kind of, do we still have superstars? Because the audience can be so fragmented in a way. Well, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know the answer.
Because we still have somebody like Taylor Swift, obviously, in this time, so it is possible. But how do you see kind of,
Mhm.
is it more you find your group of people, you find like-minded people, and that's kind of the area you're in a way?
Maybe all of the above, I mean, you're right. There are definitely pop stars still, but it seems that most of these pop stars established themselves as that before this time that we're in. Um, but I'm sure the youth knows about, some artists that we don't know about
Sure.
yet. But look, I hope that's the case, because again, you should like whatever you like and listen to whatever you want to listen to, not because a collect a collection of journalists or radio programmers tell you have to, and like force this propaganda of a certain style of music. I mean, it's all open, and that's what's really exciting um,
Sure.
to me. And so I don't know the answer to your question. It's an interesting social study that I
So
guess we'll be able to navigate a little bit better, maybe 5 years down the road. But I think you may be onto something, and we should talk again later.
but I mean, what I find interesting, particularly in your case, then is obviously you had this huge crossover hit in Sale, and um, kind of this eclectic nature. I mean, I'm sure it was there before, but I've seen that as a music journalist so much more these days, where genres start to blend, and there's seem to be less of a rule set in place these days. For you as a creative, then you've always had that mindset. So what is your approach now when you're being creative? Is it purely gut feeling?
Yeah, it's really gut feeling. I trust my instincts. I'm at that place where I can trust them pretty well. I'll say that I started this other. It's my process is still the same, um, with the exception of the what we covered earlier about my time being a little bit
Sure.
different and spread out, and I have to be smarter about planning. But something that has been really helpful for me is starting another band, starting another project, and it's called the Barbarians of California. And it's for lack of a better term, it's sort of a heavy metal thrash hardcore project that
Sure.
I've always wanted to do since my high school band, but I finally felt like the time was appropriate for me to do so. And so in order to make this brutally heavy, fun record, with the Barbarians of California, or I should say, while doing that, it allowed me to approach this AWOLNATION Phantom 5 record, which is the name of the album, kind of in a different way. And I was able to hopefully approach it with a different kind of focus instead of it all just cramming together. So I love so many different genres of music, and for better or for worse, I could do a lot of that. So having the Barbarians of California in one hand allowed me to have a different kind of maturity, hopefully, with this Phantom 5 record. Not to say that it's softer, but scratching the itch of insanity with the Barbarians allowed me to have a new perspective of,
No,
like if you were to talk to me, right, and then after talking to me, you go and talk to just straight up a pop star or, a jazz musician, it would hopefully the two interviews would help each other be better. And so that's the approach I took. And I mentioned a bunch that I wanted to go into the Phantom 5, assuming the responsibility of it possibly and perhaps being the last AWOLNATION record. And with that kind of responsibility came, a linear laser focus that helped me to make it the best it could possibly be.
but I find that very interesting because was that kind of like how serious were you with that? What was that a kind of a method to light a fire under your ass, or
Yeah,
are you seriously considering it?
both. I'm seriously considering it, but I'm seriously considering that it's all an act just to push myself. But I don't know. I mean, look, if it is the last record, I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of this group of songs. I'm really proud of the way the finality of the end of the record and how it closes out. And then who knows what I'll have to do to get fired up for a sixth album if I continue to go on. But I'll never stop making music. It's just,
Sure.
I also don't want to be too selfish with this whole thing. Like my audience, and if I could even call it that, this journey has been so unexpected, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have ears open to hearing my emotions be poured into songs. That I don't want to be too greedy and keep doing it, because there's so many bands that put out too many records, and we all know who those are, right? Not to say that there aren't some artists who make incredible seventh records or eighth records, but it's hard. It's hard to keep the listener's attention and sort of be the boy who cried wolf and said, well, now this record is really the greatest one I've ever made, and so forth and so on. Some people get away with it, and there are so many great artists who have but it usually ends up being something like, a band you loved and they're on their seventh album, and most of it you don't care for, but there's maybe that one song that still gets your heart going. So I don't know, but I love the freedom very much to say that maybe it's the last one, and that's a big part of being independent. So I can kind of do whatever I want musically. So I'm doing 2 projects now. And with the Barbarians of California, we don't expect that to be this massive thing, but it's really fun, really exciting. There's no expectations, and it seemed necessary. So it's kind of all intertwined. And really, the Phantom 5 and the Barbarians of California album kind of act like a double album. It's kind of the light and the dark. Although AWOL's still dark and twisted, as it always has been, they work together, I think, and in a parallel universe. So for anyone who cares to really dissect what I have going on in my head and putting out there, I would, I can't wait to see what the listener feels after listening to both. And maybe you even go song one, song two on both albums and see what the hell that feels like. I haven't done it, but maybe it's cool. Maybe it's a disaster. I don't know. But the point is, it's exciting to know nothing.
One last thing before we truly jump into the Phantom 5 then, but what I find interesting about your music is you've always, at least from my perspective, it always felt like you've had a very unique musical identity. There's not a lot of people that sound like you in terms of melodies, in terms of textures, in terms of kind of yeah, just how you, I think, naturally write. Is that, you mentioned being kind of uh, not convinced, what's the word, but believing in your own gut feeling. So now when you write a song, what does that typically look like in terms of finding the right textures, building kind of that sonic landscape?
I gotta say, it hasn't really evolved too differently than it began with this project. It's all like there's just such a wide variety of ways
Okay.
I come up with the genesis or origin of a song. Um, I suppose the only difference is I have this really old piano that I found. So that's a new instrument in my own house that's just sitting there, and it always sounds really nice and ghostly, and haunting. So that would be the only difference on this new record is that I just have a different tool to write with. But it could be something as simple as a piano, sitting down and just looking at the all the keys and thinking, and just starting something and going, oh, that sounds really pretty. And then you go, okay, well, I know what should come next. How about this? And then you look at all the options and it's all in front of you, and then it's sort of limitless on a piano. Or I'm in the studio and I have a new synthesizer I'm playing around with, and
Mm.
I hit a sound. I go, wow, that's a really cool sound. I don't think I've heard that before. That makes me feel a certain way, and then you build off that. Or the whole melody and lyrics just come into my mind out of nowhere, and that doesn't mean it's a good thing necessarily. But I'll record this idea and then look at it later and think, um, try to decide if it's worth pursuing and actually turning into a reality. And I should tell you that just because you have an idea doesn't mean it's a good idea, right?
Mm.
So a lot of the times I'll be like, "This is amazing," I think, and I'll record onto my phone a voice memo of me singing somewhat ridiculously a synth line or a string line or and then I try to give it a few days and take some time from it and forget about it, and then listen again with fresh ears. And most times it's not very good. um, but I'm also incredibly critical of myself and hard on my own ideas, because since I come up with these ideas alone, someone has to be. So it's a weird duality. But yeah, so all of the above, everything in between. That's kind of how I come up with stuff.
I think panoramic view is a good example of something that originated from a piano. Do you remember what your initial or your thoughts were when you revisited that idea after a couple days?
That one I knew was good, if I could be honest, because in that moment I didn't record that idea. See, I record a lot of the ideas if they're just in my head. Where this
Mm.
one, I sat down on the piano and I played the first chords, and the song kind of seemed to write itself, And when that happens, it's usually a good indication that other people may like it as well. It seems to me that the songs that take the longest for me to write and revisit, and months of losing my mind over, haven't withstood the test of time as well as the ones that kind of come quick. And Panoramic View was pretty quick. I had the verse written, and I knew I wanted to go to a more triumphant sort of sad moment in the chorus and have it lift off in that way. And it was easy to do on this piano because the piano itself just sounds so cool in this room I have.
Mm. The line that I really like from that song is somewhere out there, I still believe in magic. The reason why I like it is because I'm somewhat susceptible to cynicism, especially with the world being the way it is today. Why is it important to still believe in magic, you think?
Well, magic could be a metaphor for
Sure.
a belief system. It could be your faith, your relationships, your love, your passions, and so I'm kind of hitting it from that angle or perspective. And like you said, so in a world where we're told that the world is ending every day, the world was supposed to end 3 years ago, right? Multiple
Sure.
times. Um, Someone has to have a glass half full perspective, or we'll lose our minds. And I am like you, where mostly I live in the I exist in a bit more of a my tendency is to lean more pessimistic if
Mm.
both options are there. But as I get older, I think I'm trying to try something new,
But
right? Because
that's,
it's
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, that's pretty much it.
No, but that kind of brings it maybe full circle with what we talked about earlier about being a parent, and you mentioned Barbarians of California. It might not be the biggest thing you've done, and you've had your ups and downs in terms of success in this business. But has your kind of idea of success kind of shifted in a way then, where it's not about necessarily attention or commercial gain, but uh, just having fun at this point and being able to spend time with the people that you love.
Yeah, absolutely. And that gives me a certain artistic freedom because I'm not
Mm.
doing this to make money anymore. I'm doing it because um, it's just who I am, right? And so I think it's possible that maybe these songs and being independent, as we covered earlier, um, have a certain kind of innocence to them because they're not created to pay the bills
Mm.
anymore. Um, Hopefully they do. Hope and I'd be lying if I didn't say I was rooting for these songs to be wildly
Sure.
successful. That would be great. That'd be a nice bonus. But I've been so the word blessed is way completely overused in today's world, so I don't even want to go there with that word. So, but I just feel so incredibly I guess fulfilled possibly with how many people have cared to talk to me or listen at all, or even you taking time to talk today, because there was a point where 15 years ago I thought no one would ever want to ask me these questions, and certainly wouldn't be analyzing lyrics or tones, and I just I mean I get to create for a living, and it's something I have to remind myself of every day, and I feel just incredibly lucky.
Last question then, because this goes. I don't remember know if I'm remembering this correctly, but when we talked years ago, we talked about your childhood and that kind of how you got into music. And now with everything that's happened, and as you mentioned that 15 years ago, you had no idea that this would be your life at some point. Um, what role, or first of all, okay, could you see yourself doing anything other than music and being creative? And also, what role has music played for yourself in that process in a way? How important has that been in your kind of personal development?
Music was what I always relied on, when life got tough, and still today when life gets tough, I rely on music, and whether it's listening to a song that I could relate to or writing a song to as a sense of as sort of a replacement for therapy, you know.
Mm.
Um, I know therapy can be incredibly helpful for people, so I don't mean to throw shade at that at all. Um, but I've never felt comfortable just talking to someone, about how I feel or my deepest, darkest secrets or,
Mm.
emotions and whatever. So I put them into songs. And that's been the closest thing I could come to progress of the mind in a lot of ways. And of course, reading other people much smarter than myself, and
Sure.
trying to explore what greater, people and thinkers have thought before, and take what I can from that. Um, but yeah, I didn't really have a backup plan. And so at the time when this 15 years ago scenario, at the time where everything was looking grim and I was broke and no one wanted to give me a third chance, uh, um, it was probably too late for any backup plan. And those backup plans
Mm.
would have been, if I was 12, let's say, I was really good at baseball. I was really good at little league baseball. I was a good pitcher. Um, and I gave up on that because I started getting interested in music and surfing and socially too. I was thinking like the jocks are kind of lame at school. I want to hang out with this cooler group of people who are into underground music and surfers think the jocks are lame. And I got caught up into that whole
Mm.
vibe. And but baseball, like, I mean, who knows? There are millions of little league superstars who end up not making making it professionally. So probably that would have been the case, but I suppose I would have been a decent lawyer. I'm good at I'm good at arguing if I have to, so I guess it's not too late. I could go try to pass the bar but I was a terrible student. That's the problem.
Mm.
It's hard for me to remember information if I'm not interested in it, right? So in high school, I was told that I had like, a learning problem, and maybe I do, but I think they had a teaching problem because I didn't respect the teachers and I didn't believe what they were saying to me. So I stopped listening. I started thinking about all this other stuff.
Aaron, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you again. I wish you all the best with the album release. It's going to be interesting then to see what you will do in the future. Do you have kind of like a deadline when you'll make a decision, or are you just
No.
gonna see what creatively comes out and where it would fit?
Yeah, let's just see what happens. Who knows?